Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortins, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our fall Ask Me Anything episode at Refining Rhetoric. This is a segment that you guys have been asking for, and we've been collecting questions from Instagram and YouTube and email. So all the ways that you can connect with us. And Chris is going to ask me some of these questions today, and hopefully we'll be able to give you the answers that you're looking for. As always, Refining Rhetoric is launching new episodes every single week, so be sure to tune in and share today's episode with a friend. So without further ado, Chris, start asking me some of these questions that our audience has been dying to know.
All right, Robert. So I've got a long list of questions here. I'm going to start from the top. Does CC have summer or winter camps coming soon?
Well, I think the short answer is no. The long answer would be we have, of course, practicums during the summer, and sometimes there's local camps with those. And there's definitely a lot of different things you can do as a family with scribblers. So if there's activities that you want to just kind of work together as a local community to put on, and using scribblers as a guide, to do a summer or winter camp, of course, you're kind of welcome to do that. We are looking at bringing back a cruise in 2026 to do our Math Map and National Memory Master, or the National Memory Master competition. We're looking at bringing back N2K now that the Math Map has been rolled out, doing graduation on a cruise. And we might even do a fun summer cruise in 2025. If we get enough people interested, that'll just be kind of a vacation cruise, not anything academic related, but just an opportunity for CC families to get together. So that's where we are right now. And, during COVID, we did have a camp that we offered. And the next year that people could do digitally online or, host locally. And that really didn't get a lot of positive response from the general public. So it wasn't something that we continued to produce.
All right. The next one comes from Mama Bev on Instagram. She asks, how can I, as a mom of a CC graduate and now grandma, be useful to CC? My grandkids live far away.
Well, one of the things you can do, of course, is encourage your grandchildren and your daughter and son to homeschool your kids. Just letting other families know that homeschooling is an option, a great thing to do. You can get involved with your church. Make sure your local church has a Christian education fund to help families in your church either homeschool or send their kids to private school and get them a classical Christian education. And the other thing you can do is talk to your local SR directors about maybe being a director for maybe some challenge classes. Ideally, we love to have families that have a student in there, but if you're a CC, mom who's put their kids through CC and have been faithful to the program, there might be some directing opportunities for you in the challenge sphere. Also consider, hosting or being involved in the local practicum or hosting information meetings or open houses for your local director. So there's plenty of ways to continue to be involved even after you're an empty nester.
The B. Lopez had a couple questions for us. She wanted to know if we could talk about CC's heart and vision for retailoring the challenge guides.
Yeah, so the challenge guide is just that keyword guide. And one of the things that I like to remind people, we're working together in community. And whenever you're in a community, you have to be willing to give stuff up, but you also gain a whole lot. So for those who might be, okay, my kid got sick this week, or, we had a family emergency and he's not going to be able to get to all of his materials, how can I bring something positive to that community? How can I be a value-added member when we have those dialectic discussions, the Socratic circles in class. And so sometimes, if we're behind for whatever reason or struggling with a subject, maybe we're not on the same level as our peers or we feel that way. That doesn't mean we can't add value. And then on the same aspect, maybe your kid's excelling at this and, maybe they feel like community's a little bit rudimentary for them because they're so far ahead. Well, one, as classical educators, we should know that we should always be reviewing previous materials because we're, viewing them in new light and new ways of really gathering positive information for ourselves. So we can, when we're, 2-year-old and look at 2 + 2 = 4 for the first time, that might be, novel at that time. And now as an adult, I look back on that and maybe I can see God in that better, or maybe I can now teach it to someone who's struggling with understanding math. So whether you're ahead or behind in the guide, I think it's important to remember that if we're going to be loving our neighbors well and being good members of that local community so it's strong, that we're going to try to, for every seminar, have something positive we can bring to that discussion.
The second part of their question was related to the role of the community tutor director in the triangle.
Yeah. So at Classical Conversations, we have a triangle, and it's the parent and the tutor and Classical Conversations. And this is really comes from that Bible verse that says, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And so, your role as a parent at Classical Conversations is you are the primary educator. The role of Classical Conversations is, we're curating curriculum. We're pulling in information from, quite frankly, now tens of thousands of years of homeschooling experience, putting together those guides, those best practices, those tutorials, those videos, those PDFs for you. And so, you kind of know that following the Classical Conversations curriculum is going to really provide a great path for whatever the Lord has for you and your family, you as the parent, the primary educator. And then the tutor has a couple roles. One, of course, is, cultivating that conversation, leading it well in community, or helping the students lead it well as they get older and, keeping them on track with that. They should also be available to parents. Obviously, in the foundations, it's a lot more obvious because the parents are sitting in there with the students. But even in the challenge programs, there's still a resource there for the parents. And so we are pouring into them at Classical Conversations. They've got, additional training that they have before. They've got additional documents and different things that they have access to on CC Connected. And so those 3 strands together make a really robust community experience and really strong education. And of course, we see that in the outcome of all of our alumni.
All right. The next question is, what are the 3 things that a new homeschool mom should know before getting started?
Thank you, Juliana, for the question. It depends on the age of your children. The first thing is don't bring school home. It's very natural for us to replicate what we know. And so try to just drop that school mindset of, 45 minutes in a class and you have to get all the work done, get everything done in the workbook and those type of things. With older students who might be transitioning out of a different education setting, really making sure that you have your relationship is strong, because homeschooling is hard and you'll definitely butt heads. I think a lot of parents do that over math and Latin are 2 that we hear from a lot, and 2 areas where we try to provide a lot of support in Classical Conversations. And I think the third thing to do is just, if you can give your kid reading skills and help them to love to read, and if they love learning and they can read well, then they really can go learn anything themselves. And that's ultimately where we want to get to as homeschooling parents. And so Whether you have younger kids or older kids, making sure that there's a love of reading in your house is going to go a long way to having a well-educated, stable adult in your future.
Kristen wants to know if you've ever interviewed someone, or if you could interview someone who rode schools across the United States in an RV.
Well, good news is I've already interviewed 2 people who have either lived in RVs and homeschooled, or RV'd and road schooled. The first one was episode 6, Yvette Hampton. They were in Classical Conversations. Then they were filming a documentary on homeschooling, and I've actually been on their podcast as well. So you can check out that one. And then episode 84 with Adam Powers. His family lives in RV. I think they're pretty stationary, so not necessarily road schooling, although I'm sure they've taken it out on trips. So I definitely encourage you to check out both of those episodes. And if you enjoy them, share them with a friend. Hey everyone, the Copper Lodge Library series has a new book out, The Secret Garden. It is a beloved classic novel. It has footnotes that will really help you understand what's going on in the novel, understand word definitions, really brings the reading to another level for you and your students. Christian themes in The Secret Garden include redemption, love, the importance of community, and the foreword reminds us to approach life with wisdom. It is a wonderful read aloud for your younger students, and a piece of the curriculum that you will encounter with your challenge students as well. So go to copperlodgelibrary.com or the classicalconversationsbooks.com to get your copy today. Again, that's copperlodgelibrary.com to see the complete collection. Now let's get back to the show.
All right, the next question is, do you think we are called as believers to engage in politics? How would you suggest families start doing that with their children and prepare them for involvement as adults?
That's a great question. And the term politics is really rooted in a Greek word that is affairs of the cities. And one of the things I say is you might not be interested in politics, but politics is certainly interested in you. And as believers in a constitutional republic where we have some power with our vote and our voice, I think it's absolutely important to be engaged in politics. We get the country that we deserve. We get the leaders that we deserve. And sometimes I think it's because we've neglected those things, that we have allowed the state to take over things that are responsibility of the church and are responsibility of the parents. And then ultimately we see the results of that in our society. And of course, we see depression, divorce, like all of these negative factors at all-time highs. And I think it's because Christians not only have neglected to engage in politics, we've neglected to bring our biblical worldview and to really educate people on why government needs to be limited in nature and only responsible for the things that God has divinely ordained it to be responsible for. But we live in a fallen world, right? And very rarely do we agree with most of our elected officials. But if we get involved, then we can have sway, because if you're volunteering on their campaign, if you're knocking on doors, if you are building positive relationships with them, they're going to be more likely to listen to you. They're going to be beholden. They are going to listen to the person who knocked on 100 doors for them on a Saturday much more than the person who comes and just complains when they're in session. And so being involved with them, educating them on worldviews and why it matters is super important. So that's the easiest thing to do, is just volunteer for the campaign. If you see someone that you like locally that's doing, running for house or mayor, get involved, because that's going to be the best way for you to understand the system, for your children to understand, what their rights are as citizens. And I think, this would be very different if we lived in North Korea, what our responsibilities would be. But because we are and do have the privilege of voting and swaying other voters, that it is important that we are involved here in the United States.
It's funny, if I could, you mentioned early that, because we believe in a constitutional republic, but I think more than that, it doesn't matter whether you believe it's a good system or not. We are participants in a constitutional republic. So it is to our duty as citizens to kind of play ball.
Someone said some 20 million evangelicals didn't vote in the last election, and the election was less than 40,000 votes over 3 or 4 states decided it. So saying that your vote or voice doesn't matter is not true. It absolutely does matter.
The next question is, I would love to know why CC has decided to push all families who utilize funding for their children's education, making those families feel no longer welcome, instead of either researching those programs to see which ones might lead to programs and addressing those, or pushing back against the government overreach in the states where it exists.
Yeah, so one, we have been very well educated on those programs, and they all lead to problems. We have been engaging with civil servants, if you will, politicians, to explain to them why they should not be passing these welfare programs. And we are pushing back and trying to get them, if they have been already put into law, how we can make them weaker, or how we can push them into less, being less bad, as you were. As far as not feeling welcome, I feel bad for you. There absolutely families are welcome in classical conversations who are on welfare, but we just aren't going to take those welfare dollars in classical conversations. That protects us. That protects our programs. You see it all the time. You see it in higher education, how they have extraordinary cost and almost no value for that. And that's because the government subsidizes it. You can see that in healthcare, where the costs skyrocket and the value you're getting, the way you're treated is gone down because government subsidizes it. Almost everything the government subsidizes increases in costs and decreases in value and quality. And so we don't want to be part of that system. We don't think you should be a part of that system. And so we want to educate families. And so we've done multiple podcasts on the dangers of this. This is straight out of the United Nations plan. UNESCO is their education arm. They have multiple pages and articles and research on how they're going to use school choice or these state funding to take over private schools and really just provide equal outcome of education. And so it's straight from the communist playbook, and we don't need to be deceived. Quite frankly, we would get rich off of taking these dollars because we could charge 10 times the amount that we charge now, and parents wouldn't blink an eye because the state's funding it. And it really is degrading your moral compass when you take this money. And so we just want to raise awareness for families. But you're more than welcome to pay and use your own funds. But we can't have Christian leaders who are welfare queens in CC.
All right. I think we have time for one more, and then we're going to have to bounce them to another episode. So the last question for the day is going to be, will CC ever lower costs?
Will CC ever lower costs? Yeah, we would love to. If you can get us about 1 million more students, we could charge way less because it's all about covering costs and paying tutors and directors. So, classical conversations, unfortunately is still has to see what the economy is doing, and if costs increase for us, like for example, printing costs increased 20%, but we didn't increase our book costs 20%. We actually ate that increase for multiple years, and I've only now started slowly lowering it. So if you look at inflation adjusted costs for classical conversations since our inception in 1997, we're either right in line with inflation or actually have gone down compared to inflation. So what we really need is a government who adopts either a gold standard or Bitcoin standard and stops inflating away all of our work. Inflation is a tax. It mostly affects lower and middle class because upper class have tax incentives and different opportunities to kind of hide their wealth and get absorbed by inflation that aren't available for other people. So I would say that our goal is always to keep costs as low as possible. We want as many people to be able to access it. We have, there's scholarships. HSLDA has scholarships. Give, Send, Go has a scholarship fund, as well as, we are encouraging local churches to start scholarship funds. And of course, there's tutoring and directing, selling books. There's all sorts of ways that moms and dads can finance their homeschooling habit through classical conversations as well. So, I think we're doing a great job keeping costs down. And, we hate it that we have inflationary monetary policies here in the United States. And of course, that's one of the reasons we read books like Whatever Happened to Penny Candy and try to teach more Austrian economic ideas in our program as opposed to Keynesian ideas that have really destroyed and created this huge wealth gap that we have in our country.
All right. Thank you, Robert. I think that's going to be it for today.
All right. I hope you enjoyed today's question and answer session. If you do have questions, of course, we're going to do this regularly every single year, probably a couple of times a year. So go ahead and always post those. Our team's always grabbing them for the next AMA. Please share this episode with a friend. And until next time, God bless.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.